Chicago was a city of steel and secrets, its skyscrapers slicing the sky, its riverwalk shimmering with neon dreams that could blind or betray. In a sterile hospital room, Imani Carter woke to a nightmare, her head pounding, her memories jagged like broken glass. The last thing she recalled was a bus swerving on Lakeshore Drive, a scream, then darkness. Now nurses in crisp scrubs called her Eleanor. Price, their voices clipped, their eyes sliding away. Imani's heart raced. She wasn't Eleanor. She was a black woman from Oakland raised on Nina Simone and cornbread scraping by as a gallery manager in Chicago. Her dreams of an art center for black kids, bigger than her paycheck. A woman in a tailored suit loomed over her, her platinum hair gleaming like the city's cold steel. Vivian Sterling, matriarch of the Sterling real estate empire, had eyes that could freeze fire. "You're late for the gala." "Eleanor," she said, her voice sharp as a blade, "get dressed. We have a legacy to secure." Imani's stomach twisted. Gala. She was no socialite, but Vivian's next words hit like a fist. "Your sister's treatment depends on you. One wrong move and Nia's machines stop." Imani's breath caught. Nia, her older sister. Her anchor was in a coma after the same crash. Her life tethered to ventilators funded by the Sterlings. She clutched the hospital sheet, her nails digging into her palms. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady, despite the fear clawing her chest. Vivian handed her a sleek phone and a garment bag, her smile a warning. "Don't disappoint me. Alone." Imani unzipped the bag, revealing a black silk gown that shimmered like midnight. She slipped it on the fabric, clinging to her curves, but it felt like a lie, a costume stitched with deceit. She checked the phone. Eleanor Price's Instagram, a parade of yacht parties and fake smiles, a white woman with icy eyes who wasn't her. Imani's reflection in the mirror showed her truth, deep brown skin, full lips, eyes that burned with Oakland grit. The nurse had mentioned a record mix-up, but this felt deliberate, a trap snapping shut. She tucked the phone into her clutch, hitting record. If Vivian was playing dirty, Imani would play smarter. Her mind flashed to Oakland, her mama's backyard where iris flowers bloomed purple and proud. Her mama's voice a beacon. "You're a flame. Imani, ain't nobody dimming you." She straightened her braids, swaying, and stepped into the fire. The Art Institute of Chicago was a palace of wealth, its grand hall ablaze with chandeliers dripping light like liquid gold. The Gala buzzed with Chicago's elite men in tuxes, women in gowns worth more than Imani's rent, their laughter masking deals and daggers. Imani felt their stares, their whispers about Eleanor Price, the woman poised to marry the Sterling heir. She gripped her clutch, the phone recording her heels clicking on marble. The gown hugged her too tight, too foreign, but she wore it like armor, her chin high, her mama's jazz, Nina Simone's Feeling Good, echoing in her head. She scanned the room, her gaze locking on Noah Sterling. He leaned against a lion statue, his sharp jaw set, his gray eyes scanning the crowd with a boredom that screamed he'd rather be anywhere else. Tall, broad-shouldered, his tux fitted like a second skin. He was the billionaire heir splashed across Forbes, a man who could buy half this city. But his eyes held a flicker of something else, restlessness, a spark waiting to ignite. Imani's pulse quickened, her instincts torn between caution and curiosity. Vivian appeared, her hand on Imani's arm, her grip iron. "Smile." "Eleanor," she hissed, steering her toward Noah. "He's your future." Imani forced a smile, her heart pounding as Vivian introduced them. "Noah, meet Eleanor Price. Your fiancé." Noah's eyes met hers, and the room went quiet, the chatter fading under the weight of his gaze. "Eleanor," he said, his voice low, smooth like a jazz riff, but a question lingered in it, like he sensed the lie. He offered his hand, his fingers brushing hers, sending a spark up her arm. "Dance with me," Imani hesitated, Nia's face flashing in her mind, but she took his hand, her skin tingling where it met his. "One dance, Sterling," she said, her voice cool, testing him. "Don't get cocky." He led her to the dance floor, the crowd parting their eyes, hungry for gossip. The orchestra struck a slow waltz, violins weaving a spell through the air. Noah pulled her close, his hand firm on her waist, his breath warm against her temple. The chandeliers cast flecks of light across his face, catching his cheekbones, the curve of his lips. Imani felt his heat through her gown, his body moving with hers, fluid, like they danced 1,000 times. "You don't move like a socialite," he said, his voice a low rumble, his lips close to her ear. "Too much fire." She tilted her head, meeting his gaze, her heart racing. "Call me Imani," she said, her voice daring him to question it. "And you don't know fire, Noah." His eyes sparked a smile, tugging at his lips. "Imani," he repeated, tasting the name, his thumb grazing her hip, sending a shiver down her spine. "I'm learning fast." The music swelled, violins climbing, and Noah spun her, his hand tightening, their bodies pressed closer. The air crackled alive with danger and desire. Imani felt his heartbeat through his shirt, fast, matching hers. His lips hovered near her neck, his breath hot, and she arched into him, her fingers digging into his shoulder, the silk of her gown whispering against his tucks. The chandeliers spun their light, scattering like stars, and for a moment, she forgot the lie, forgot Naya, forgot everything but Noah's. "Pull. Careful, Imani," he murmured, his voice rough, his hand sliding lower, resting above the small of her back. "You're making me forget the rules," she smirked, leaning in, her lips brushing his ear, her voice a challenge. "Rules are for people who play safe, that you, Sterling." The song ended, but they stayed locked. The crowd's applause a distant hum. Imani's pulse roared, her body humming, but a vibration from her clutch snapped her back. She stepped away, her hands trembling as she pulled out the phone. Vivian's left in the garment bag by mistake. A text from Eleanor Price glowed. "She's perfect, Vivian. Don't let her suspect." Imani's blood ran cold. The chandelier's light, now harsh, a spotlight on the trap. She looked at Noah, his eyes searching hers, a question forming. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice softer, almost concerned. "Nothing," she lied, slipping the phone back, her mind racing. "Perfect." The word burned a match in the dark. Vivian and Eleanor were playing her and Noah his touch. His gaze might be part of it. She pulled back her walls, slamming up. "I need air," she said, turning toward the exit, her heels echoing. Noah called after her, but she didn't stop, the night air hitting her like a slap as she reached the river walk. The Chicago River glittered its ripples, catching the city's neon. But Imani saw Oakland, her mama's iris. Garden purple petals swaying her mama's voice. "You're a flame." She clutched the phone, the recording running, her resolve hardening. She'd play Vivian's game, wear Eleanor's gown, but she'd burn it down to save Nia. Noah watched her go, his jaw tight, Imani's fire searing his skin. She wasn't Eleanor Price. He'd known it the moment she said Imani, her eyes a challenge no socialite could match, her defiance. Her heat stirred something he'd buried under Sterling's weight. He pulled out his phone, dialing Talia Reed, his private investigator. "Dig into Eleanor Price," he said, his voice low. "Everything. Her past, the crash. I want to know who I'm dealing with back at the hospital." Nia lay still, monitors beeping, unaware of the storm around her. Sister Imani stood by the river, neon lights painting her face in blue and gold. She wasn't Eleanor, but she'd wear the mask until she could tear it off. Noah. Sterling. His touch, his secrets might be her downfall or her spark. Thank you for diving into Imani and Noah's fiery start. If their dance under Chicago's lights set your heart ablaze, hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell to catch every spark. Drop a comment. What moment made you feel a love that burns through lies? Share this video with a friend who needs a dose of fire, and we'll meet you back in Chicago, where secrets are just the beginning. Chicago's pulse thrummed through its neon veins, but in the River North penthouse, Imani Carter felt like a bird in a gilded cage. The city's skyline glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, a dazzling lie that matched the one she was living. She was still Eleanor Price to the world, her true self, Oakland-born, black fierce, buried to keep her sister Nia alive. The gala at the Art Institute 2 nights ago had ignited something dangerous. Noah Sterling's touch, his grey eyes seeing past her mask, and that text from Eleanor Price, "She's perfect, Vivian, don't let her suspect," burning a hole in her mind. Vivian Sterling's threat. Nia's machine's stop was a chain, and Imani was pulling at every link to break it. She paced the penthouse, her braids loose, her jeans and hoodie, a rebellion against Eleanor's silk gowns. Her phone held the recording of Vivian's voice, a weapon but not enough. The hospital's records were her next target. She'd hacked into Nia's file last night, her gallery manager's knack for details paying off a nurse's signature L. Thompson didn't match any staff list, a red flag screaming setup. The bus crash wasn't an accident, and Eleanor was no ghost. She was a snake, coiled and waiting. Imani's mind flashed to her mama's iris garden in Oakland, purple petals swaying her mama's voice, a lifeline. "You're a flame, Imani. Burn bright." A knock at the door snapped her focus. She shoved her laptop under a cushion, her heart racing, expecting Vivian's cold stare. Instead, a delivery guy handed her a coffee and a note. Blue Note, 9 p.m. "We need to talk." Noah. Imani's pulse skipped. Noah's name, a spark she couldn't douse. His dance at the gala. His hand on her waist had stirred something reckless. But Eleanor's text and Vivian's game made trust a minefield. She tucked the note away, her resolve hardening. She'd meet him, but on her terms. The Willis Towers sky deck was a stage for Chicago's elite, its glass walls framing a city they owned. Imani stood in a crimson gown Vivian had chosen, its plunging neckline and tight fit, a costume she despised. The Sterling dinner was a power play. Investors in tailored suits, their wives dripping diamonds, their smiles sharp as knives. Imani moved through the crowd, her Oakland swagger a shield, but every eye judged Eleanor Price, the Sterling fiancée. Not Imani Carter, the woman who'd rather be painting murals in Bronzeville. Vivian appeared, her silver dress glinting, her voice a hiss. "Sign this," she said, thrusting a marriage contract at Imani, its pages heavy with legalese. "Noah expects a wife, and the Sterling legacy needs an heir." Imani's throat tightened, her fingers brushing the pen, but she met Vivian's gaze, her voice steady. "And if I don't?" Vivian's smile was ice. "Nia's care ends tomorrow. Choose wisely." Imani signed, her hand steady, but her phone hidden in her clutch recorded every word. Vivian thought she was a pawn, but Imani was carving her own board. She tucked the contract away, her mind racing marriage to Noah, the man whose touch set her ablaze, but whose secrets could destroy her. A gray-haired man in a pinstripe suit approached, his smile condescending. "You're the help, right?" he said, handing her his empty glass. "Another bourbon. Quick!" Imani froze the room's chatter, fading his words. A slap. The gown, the contract, the sterling name, none of it shielded her from being seen as less. She set the glass down, her voice low, lethal. "I'm Eleanor Price, Noah Sterling's fiancée. Next time check your damn assumptions." The man's face reddened, his apology stammering, but the crowd's whispers cut deeper. Imani was a black woman in a world that didn't want her light, and for a moment she was 16 again, hearing a teacher say she'd never make it. She straightened her mama's jazz, Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit echoing in her mind, grounding her. Noah appeared, his jaw tight, his eyes blazing. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, protective, his hand hovering near her arm. "Peachy." Imani said, her tone sharp, but his presence steadied her. His cologne, sandalwood, and spice, mixing with the city's hum. "Your people got a real way with charm." "They're idiots," he said, his hand brushing her arm, a spark flaring. "Let me fix this." She cocked an eyebrow, skeptical. "How Sterling another dance?" "Better," he said, a rare smile softening his edges. "Meet me at Blue Note 9. The Blue Note Jazz Club was a sanctuary of smoke and soul, its neon sign flickering like a heartbeat in River North. Inside, the air was thick with whiskey and rhythm, a saxophone's wail curling through the dark like a lover's call. Imani slid into a corner booth, her jeans swapped for a black dress, simple but fierce, her braids catching the dim light. The club felt like home, pulling her back to Oakland nights with Naya dancing to D'Angelo in their cramped duplex. Noah was already there, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his gray eyes tracking her like she was the only one in the room. He slid a whiskey across the table, his voice low, cutting through the saxophone's moan. "You don't belong in that tower, Imani," he said, his knee brushing hers under the table, sending a jolt through her. "You're too real for it." She sipped the drink, its burn grounding her. "And you fit right in." "Sterling," she said, her voice teasing but sharp. "What's this, slumming it with the common folk?" He leaned closer, his gaze intense, his voice a low rumble. "This is me, trying to know you. You're not Eleanor Price, not the one Vivian described." "So who are you, Imani Carter?" Her heart skipped, but she held his gaze, her voice steady. "Someone you don't want to mess with." "Question is Noah. What do you know about Eleanor?" His eyes darkened, a shadow crossing his face. "She was a mistake. A fling. I ended months ago. But you—" He stopped, his hand reaching for hers, his fingers grazing her knuckles, warm, deliberate. "You're something else, I feel it." The saxophone hit a high note, sharp and aching, and Imani felt the air shift, charged with reckless heat. She pulled her hand back, but her body betrayed her, leaning toward him, drawn to the fire in his eyes. "You don't know me, Noah," she said, her voice husky, a challenge. "Don't pretend you do." "Then show me," he said, his voice rough, his hand finding her wrist, his thumb tracing circles that sent shivers up her spine. The booth felt smaller, the world shrinking to their breath, the saxophone's wail matching her pulse. She stood, pulling him with her, her body moving before her mind caught up. "Dance with me," she said, leading him to a dark corner, the crowd fading. The music slowed, a sultry blues riff, and Imani pressed against him, her hands on his chest, feeling his heartbeat through his shirt. Noah's hands settled on her hips, firm, possessive, his breath hot against her temple, his stubble grazing her cheek. "Your trouble, Imani," he murmured, his lips brushing her ear, his voice a growl that weakened her knees. The club's lights were dim, casting shadows across his face, highlighting the hunger in his eyes. She pushed him against the wall, her fingers curling into his shirt, tearing a button loose, the fabric rough under her nails. Their lips crashed together, a kiss, all teeth and heat, the taste of whiskey sharp between them. His hands roamed her back, pulling her closer, his fingers digging into her hips, her body arching, her nails grazing his shoulders. The saxophone wailed its notes, weaving through their ragged breaths, the club's heat wrapping them like a spell. Noah's lips trailed to her neck, a low groan escaping him. As she pressed tighter, the scent of his cologne sandalwood spice mixing with the club's smoky air. "God, Imani," he rasped, his hands sliding lower, teasing the edge of her dress, the air electric with want. But the Gala's text, "She's perfect," flashed cold and sharp, breaking the spell. Imani pulled back her chest, heaving, her lips tingling. "I'm not your game, Noah," she said, her voice shaky but firm. "If you know Eleanor, you better come clean." His eyes searched hers, frustration and desire warring. "I don't know what you're running from, Imani, but I'm not the enemy." "Then prove it," she said, stepping away. The music fading as she headed for the door, the night air hitting her like a slap. The city's neon blurred her mind, a storm. Noah's kiss burned, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Back in the penthouse, Imani kicked off her shoes, her gaze falling on a canvas tucked behind a bookshelf. She pulled it out, her breath catching a painting of a black woman with irises in her hair, her eyes fierce under jazz club lights. The signature was faint N. Sterling. Noah had painted this, a secret piece of his soul hidden in this sterile cage. Her fingers traced the irises, her mama's garden flashing purple petals. Billie Holiday's voice, a reminder of who she was. She sank onto the couch, the canvas in her lap, her resolve hardening. Noah wasn't what he seemed, and neither was she. She'd dig deeper, find Eleanor, save Nia. But Noah's painting, his kiss, his fire, it complicated everything. She opened her laptop, pulling up the hospital's records again, her eyes narrowing at a new file, a payment to L. Thompson linked to a Sterling account. Her flame roared, ready to burn through the lies. Across town, Noah sat at the Blue Notes bar, the whiskey untouched, Imani's scent, jasmine and defiance still on him. Her walls, her fire had him hooked, but her words, prove it, cut deep. She wasn't Eleanor, and he needed answers. He dialed Talia. "Read," his voice firm. "Focus on the crash." "Talia and Eleanor. Price find her. I need to know who Imani Carter is, in a South Side dive bar." Eleanor Price sipped a martini, her blonde hair tucked under a scarf, her smirk sharp. The crash had been her ticket back to Noah, to the Sterling fortune, but Imani's fire was unraveling it. She texted Vivian, her fingers steady. "She's trouble. Tighten the leash." Chicago hummed outside its secrets, buried. But Imani Carter was a spark, and Eleanor had no idea how bright she'd burn. Savannah. Georgia was a city of whispers and warmth, its oak trees cloaked in Spanish moss, its cobblestone streets alive with the echoes of black resilience. Imani Carter stood in Forsyth Park, the air heavy with magnolia blooms, and the distant strum of a banjo from a street festival. She was still Eleanor Price to the Sterlings, her true self, a flicker beneath the lie. But Chicago's cold steel felt distant here. Noah Sterling had brought her to Savannah for a supposed real estate conference, but the way his gray eyes lingered on her, hungry and unguarded, said this was something else, something reckless, something that could burn them both. The past week had been a tightrope. Imani's recording of Vivian Sterling's threats was her ace, but the fake nurse's signature and Eleanor Price's text, "She's perfect, Vivian," screamed conspiracy. Noah's painting, a black woman with irises glowing under jazz club lights, had cracked her defenses, hinting at a man beneath the billionaire mask. Their kiss at Blue Note, fierce and whiskey-soaked, had set her ablaze, but his past with Eleanor, his secrets kept her guarded. Imani's mind flashed to Oakland. Her mama's iris garden, purple petals, swaying her mama's voice, a beacon. You're a flame. Imani, burn bright. Noah stood beside her, his linen shirt open at the collar, his dark hair tousled by the humid breeze. You look like you belong here, he said, his voice low, a smile softening his sharp edges. Not in some penthouse, but here with the music and the night. Imani arched an eyebrow, her braids catching the park's golden lights. Don't sweet-talk me, Sterling, she said, her tone teasing but wary. You dragged me to Savannah for your deal. Not my soul, he chuckled, the sound warm, disarming. Maybe I want both. Walk with me. They wandered through the park, the festival's glow casting shadows, the banjo mingling with laughter and the clink of sweet tea glasses. Savannah wasn't just charm, it was history, black history, from Gullah Geechee roots to the Underground Railroad. Imani felt its pulse, her mama's spirit, Black Panther fear stirring in her. She dreamed of an art center for black kids, a place to paint their own futures, and Savannah's resilience fueled that fire. They stopped at the First African Baptist Church, its brick walls built by enslaved hands in 1859, a sanctuary of survival. Imani traced the diamond-shaped air holes in the floor. Part of the Underground Railroad. Her fingers trembling. My mama would have stood here, she said. Her voice soft, raw. She was a panther, fought for us, taught me to dream big, to build something real like an art center for black kids, a place to shine. Noah's eyes softened, his hand brushing hers, a spark flaring. You're doing it, Imani, he said, his voice fervent. That fire in you. It's why I can't look away. Her breath hitched, his words cracking her walls, but doubt lingered. You don't know me, Noah, she said, pulling back her voice steady. You know, Eleanor Price or whatever. Vivian fed you. He stepped closer, his voice low, urgent. I know you're not her. I don't care what Vivian says. I see you. Imani Carter. The words hit like a tide pulling her under, but Eleanor's shadow loomed. Before she could reply, the festival band struck up a lively Gala spiritual, its rhythm calling her roots. Noah grinned his eyes, daring. Dance with me, he said, pulling her into the crowd. Under the park's fountain, lit by a full moon, they joined the dancers, the banjo's twang mixing with cheers, the scent of gumbo thick in the air. Noah spun. Imani, his hands firm on her waist, her sundress flaring as she laughed. The sound, foreign free. The moonlight painted her skin silver, her braids swaying, and Noah's gaze was a flame burning through her guard. Your trouble. Carter, he said, his voice rough, his hands sliding to her hips, pulling her close. The crowd a blur. Damn right. She shot back her hands on his chest, his heartbeat wild under her palms. The music pulsed and Imani sang softly, a Gullah melody her mama taught her voice weaving with the banjo, grounding her in Savannah's soul. A warm rain broke, scattering the crowd, and Noah grabbed her hand, laughing, as they ran to an old hotel, its brick walls draped in ivy. Inside, the lobby was empty, the clerk nodding them to a room upstairs. The door clicked shut, the room lit by a single candle, its flame dancing in the dark, the scent of wax and rain filling the air. Imani's dress clung to her, wet, her skin glistening under the golden light. Noah's shirt was soaked, outlining his muscles, his eyes locked on her raw, hungry Imani. He said, his voice a growl, stepping closer, his hand cupping her face, his thumb tracing her jaw. Tell me to stop. She didn't. She pulled him in her lips, crashing against his, the kiss deep, desperate tasting of rain and need. The candle's glow flickered, casting shadows as Noah lifted her legs wrapping around him, her back hitting the wall. His hands roamed her thighs, slipping under her dress, his fingers hot against her skin, a moan escaping her as his lips trailed to her neck, nipping softly. The The rain pounded outside its rhythm, matching their breaths. The banjo's echo faint through the window, mingling with the scent of wet earth. "God, you're everything," he rasped, his hands gripping her hips, pulling her closer, their bodies pressed tight. The heat, a living thing. Imani's fingers tangled in his hair, her nails grazing his scalp, her body arching, the candle's light painting her curves in gold. They stumbled to the bed, her dress falling away, his shirt torn open, their skin slick with rain and sweat, moving in a dance older than Savannah. The world shrank to the flicker of the candle, the patter of rain, the heat of his hands, the way he whispered her name like a vow. "I don't care who you are." Noah said, his voice raw, his eyes locked on hers as they lay tangled, their breaths slowing. "I want you, Imani. Just you." Her heart swelled, wanting to believe him, but a buzz from his phone on the nightstand shattered the moment Imani reached for it, her fingers trembling a text from Eleanor. "She's a fraud." "Noah, I'm your future." Her blood ran cold, the candle's flame a taunt, its light exposing the lie. She sat up, grabbing her dress, her voice icy. "You knew her," she said, her heart splintering. "You're still tied to her." "Imani, wait," Noah said, reaching for her, but she pulled away, the rain's roar drowning his words. "Eleanor's the past. I swear it." "Then why's she texting you?" She snapped, her voice breaking her mama's iris garden wilting in her mind. She stormed out the hotel's stairs, blurring through tears, the Savannah night swallowing her. Back at the hotel, Noah stood under the dripping oaks. The festival's lights faded. Eleanor's text, a ghost, dragging him back. He hadn't seen her in months, but her claws were deep, and Imani's fire was caught in them. He opened his laptop, searching his email, his hands shaking. A message from Eleanor sent weeks ago stopped him cold, a threat to Nia Carter, a journalist digging into sterling deals. His stomach churned. Imani was Nia's sister, and Eleanor had targeted them both. He dialed. "Talia Reid," his voice clipped. "Find Eleanor. Talia, and check Nia Carter's files." This crash wasn't an accident. Imani stood by the Savannah River, the moon's reflection rippling her hands, clutching a dried iris petal from Mama's garden. Noah's touch. His words burned, but Eleanor's text was a blade. She opened her phone, pulling up the hospital's hacked files, her eyes narrowing at a new email, an attachment from Eleanor sent to Vivian by mistake. Nia was getting close. The crash fixed it. Imani's flame roared the truth, a weapon she'd wielded in Chicago. She'd face Eleanor, save Nia, and decide if Noah's fire was worth her heart. Chicago's skyline was a cold jury, its lights sharp and unrelenting, as Imani Carter stepped off the plane from Savannah. Her heart, a battlefield of love and betrayal. The city's chill bit through her jacket, a stark contrast to the warm rain of Forsyth Park, where Noah Sterling's hands had set her ablaze. His words, "I want you, Imani," a vow she'd almost believed, but Eleanor Price's text, "She's a fraud, Noah. I'm your future." And the email she'd found, Nia was getting close. The crash fixed it. Had gutted her, exposing the Sterling web of lies. Imani was still Eleanor Price to them, a mask worn to save her sister Nia. But every step in this game pushed her closer to breaking or burning it all down. In her River North penthouse, Imani kicked off her boots, her braids loose, her eyes scanning the sterile marble, Noah's painting. The black woman with irises glowing under jazz club lights sat propped against the wall, a reminder of his hidden fire. She'd clung to it on the flight, its colors a lifeline, but Eleanor's words and Vivian Sterling's threats, Nia's machine's stop, were louder. Her phone held the recording of Vivian's voice and the hacked email from Eleanor, proof the crash was no accident. Imani opened her laptop, digging deeper into sterling accounts, her fingers trembling as she traced a payment to the fake nurse, L. Thompson, signed by Vivian herself. The truth was a blade, but she needed more to cut through the lies. A text buzzed Nia's hospital stable, but critical. Imani's chest tightened, her mama's iris garden flashing in her mind, purple petals swaying her mama's voice. A call. "You're a flame." Imani, she'd face Vivian, expose Eleanor and save Nia. But Noah, his kiss, his painting, his secrets, was a storm she couldn't navigate. The Adler Planetarium was a dome of glass and stars, its Gala, a glittering cage where Chicago's elite played their games. Imani wore a sapphire gown, its deep blue clinging to her curves, but she felt exposed, every eye, judging Eleanor Price, the sterling fiancé. The city's lights sparkled through the windows, cold, distant, a mirror to her heart. Noah stood across the room, his tux sharp, his gray eyes tracking her, but she avoided him, the memory of Savannah. His lips, his hands, that text, too, raw, too painful. A woman stepped forward, her blonde hair sleek, her smile, a knife. Eleanor Price, the real one in the flesh. Imani's pulse spiked, her grip tightening on her champagne flute. Eleanor's eyes glinted, her voice a low taunt. "You're playing your part well, Eleanor," she said, her gaze raking over Imani. "But Noah's mine. Always will be." "And this," she touched her stomach, smirking. "His baby?" Imani's blood ran cold, but she held her ground, her voice icy. "Lie. Better, or step off Noah's done with you." Eleanor's smirk faltered, her eyes narrowing. But before she could reply, Vivian appeared, her hand on Imani's arm, her grip bruising. "Smile, dear," she hissed, steering her away. "We have guests to impress." Imani forced a smile, her mind reeling. A baby. Eleanor was bluffing. She had to be, but the doubt gnawed sharp as Chicago's wind. She glanced at Noah, his jaw tight, his eyes on Eleanor, and her heart twisted. Was he still caught in her web? Vivian cornered her in a quiet hallway, her voice low, venomous. "Fertility treatments start tomorrow," she said, thrusting a medical form at Imani. "The sterling heir comes first, or Nia's care ends." Imani met her gaze, her phone recording her voice steady. "You don't own me, Vivian. Keep pushing, and you'll see what I'm made of." Vivian's eyes flashed a flicker of unease, breaking her mask. "You're out of your depth," she said, turning away, her heels echoing like a countdown. Imani leaned against the wall, her breath shaky, the city's lights blurring. She needed Noah, but trust was a ghost slipping through her fingers. She slipped out, heading to Bronzeville, where a mural half-finished. A black woman with irises stood under streetlights. She traced its lines, her mama's voice echoing. "Burn bright." The mural was her dream, a piece of the art center she'd build, and no sterling could take that. Noah's penthouse was a fortress of glass, the Chicago skyline a cold witness, as Imani stormed in her sapphire gown, trailing like a comet. He was there, a whiskey glass in hand, his shirt unbuttoned, his eyes dark with pain and hunger. "Imani," he said, standing, his voice rough, "why'd you run in Savannah?" She laughed, bitter, her heart pounding. "Run. You let Eleanor back in Noah. She's texting you claiming your kid. Don't play me for a damn fool." His face paled, the glass hitting the table with a clink. "She's lying," he said, stepping closer, his hands raised. "Eleanor and I ended. Months ago. I swear, Imani. It's you I want." "Then why's she in your phone?" Imani snapped, her voice rising, her hands shaking. "Why's she calling me a fraud?" Noah reached for her, but she slapped his hand away, the sound sharp in the quiet room. "Don't touch me," she said, her eyes burning, but the air crackled, charged with anger, and something hotter, something alive. He stepped closer, his breath ragged, his eyes locked on hers. Gray storms brewing. "Imani, listen," he said, his voice low, desperate. "I don't know her game, but I'm not in it. Not in. You're the one I see, the one I—" She cut him off, shoving him back, her hands on his chest, but the push turned to a pull, her fingers curling into his shirt, tearing it open, buttons scattering, their lips crashed together, a kiss born of fury and need, all teeth and fire. Noah lifted her onto the sofa, her gown hitching up his hands, gripping her thighs, his stubble grazing her neck as he groaned, the sound raw, primal. The city's lights streamed through the windows, cold, harsh, a stark contrast to the heat of their bodies, her nails raking his back, his fingers tangling in her braids. Glass shattered, a wine bottle knocked to the floor, its crash mingling with their heavy breaths, the scent of whiskey sharp in the air. Imani arched into him, her legs wrapping around his waist, the sofa creaking, her skin burning under his touch, his hand sliding under her gown, teasing her curves. "I love you," Noah rasped, his lips on her collarbone, his voice breaking. "But you're killing me, Imani. I love you too," she gasped, her voice splintering. "But you're breaking my heart." The words spilled raw true, and she pushed him away, her chest heaving, her gown askew. She stood, the shattered glass crunching under her heels, her eyes wet but fierce. "Fix this, Noah, or we're done." She stormed out, the city's lights blurring through tears, her phone buzzing with a new email, an attachment from Vivian's account, hacked from Noah's laptop. Crash was necessary. Eleanor's, our key. Imani's breath caught the iris petal in her pocket. A fragile anchor. Vivian had orchestrated the crash, and Eleanor was her weapon. Noah's confession burned, but his ties to Eleanor muddied everything. In Bronzeville, the mural glowed under streetlights, its irises a beacon. Imani stood before it, her fingers tracing the painted woman's eyes, her mama's Black Panther slogan, "Power to the people," echoing. She'd fight for Nia, for her dream, for herself, even if it meant losing Noah. Her phone buzzed, a text from the hospital. Nia stable, slight improvement. A spark of hope, but not enough. Noah stood in his penthouse, the broken glass at his feet. Imani's scent. Jasmine and defiance still in the air. Her words. "You're breaking my heart." Cut deeper than any lie. He opened his laptop, pulling up sterling accounts, his hands shaking. A transfer to L. Thompson, signed by Vivian, confirmed Imani's truth. His mother had played him. Played Imani, and Eleanor was the match to their flame. He dialed Talia Reed, his voice steel. "Get me everything on Vivian's accounts. Talia, and find Eleanor. She's not slipping away at a Southside motel." Eleanor Price paced, her blonde hair a mess, her plan crumbling. Imani's fire at the Gala. Her defiance was unraveling everything. She'd rigged the crash to reclaim Noah, to secure the sterling fortune. But Imani was no pawn. She was a queen, and Eleanor hated her for it. She texted an unknown contact, her fingers steady. "Nia's machines. Make it fail." The reply was instant. On it, Chicago's lights burned on, oblivious, but Imani Carter was aflame, and no one could dim her now. Oakland, California was a pulse of defiance and dreams, its streets alive with hip-hop, the scent of sweet potato pie, and the unyielding spirit of a black community that refused to bow. Imani. Carter stood by Lake Merritt, the water catching the first pink streaks of dawn, the city's murals. Black Panther fists raised high, a testament to her roots. Chicago's cold skyline was a world away, but its wounds lingered. Eleanor Price's lies. She's a fraud. Vivian Sterling's betrayal. Crash was necessary, and Noah Sterling's confession, "I love you, Imani." Raw and reckless on his penthouse sofa, Imani had stormed out, her heart shattered, but the dried iris petal in her pocket, a relic from her mama's garden, anchored her. "You're a flame, Imani, burn bright." The email from Vivian's account, hacked from Noah's laptop, had confirmed the crash was no accident. Vivian's orders, Eleanor's execution, Imani's recording of Vivian's threats, and the fake nurse's payment were weapons. But she needed more to free Nia from the Sterling grip. Noah's painting, his kiss, his fire muddied her resolve. But Eleanor's claim of a baby, false or not cut deep. Imani's phone buzzed a hospital update. Nia Carter awake, responsive. Relief flooded her, a spark of hope. But the fight wasn't over. She'd come to Oakland to find answers, to reconnect with her roots, and to decide if Noah's love was worth the risk. She headed to her mama's duplex in West Oakland. Its paint chipped, but the iris garden out back, vibrant purple petals swaying in the morning breeze. Clara Carter, her mother, stood in the kitchen, her locks streaked with gray, her eyes warm but fierce, a Black Panther in the 70s. Clara had marched for freedom, her spirit afire, Imani carried. "You look like you're carrying a storm, baby," Clara said, pulling Imani into a hug, her scent lavender and cornbread, home itself. "I am Mama," Imani said, her voice cracking. She spilled everything. The crash, Eleanor's swap, Vivian's threats, Noah's tangled heart. Clara listened, her hands steady, then cupped Imani's face, her eyes blazing. "You're stronger than their lies," Clara said, her voice fierce. I raised a flame. "Not a shadow. Nia's awake and you're still burning. Don't let them dim you. Not even that boy." Imani's eyes stung the iris garden outside, a mirror to her soul. "Noah says he loves me, Mama," she said, her voice soft. "But Eleanor's in his past, and I don't know if I can trust him." Clara's smile was knowing. "Love's a gamble, baby. If he's real, he'll fight for you. If not, you're enough. Always have been." Imani walked Oakland streets, the Black Panther mural on 14th Street. Bold reds, blacks, greens, screaming resistance. Kids played nearby, their laughter, fueling her dream, an art center for black youth, a place to create, to shine. She stopped at a community center where Tasha, a friend of Nia's, handed her a USB drive, her eyes sharp. Nia was digging into Sterling before the crash. Tasha said, "Found offshore accounts, shady deals." She said someone was tailing her blonde cold. "Sounds like your Eleanor." Imani's pulse raced, the USB heavy in her hand. Nia, a journalist, had always chased truth, even when it burned. This was why Vivian targeted them, why Eleanor swapped their lives. Back at Mama's, Imani plugged the USB into her laptop, her hands trembling. A video file loaded Eleanor in a dimly lit room, her voice smug. Nia was too close to the Sterling accounts. The crash was clean. Vivian's orders. My execution. Noah's mine again. The video was time-stamped, sent to Vivian by mistake. A fatal slip. Imani's flame roared the video, a sword to cut through the lies. She texted the hospital confirming Nia's recovery, then headed to Highland Hospital, the Oakland sun climbing its light. A promise. Nia lay propped up, her face pale, but her eyes fierce, a mirror to Imani's own. "You look like you've been through hell, sis," Nia said, her voice weak but sharp, a grin breaking through. Imani laughed, tears spilling as she hugged her, careful of the IVs. "Says the one who scared me to death," she said, her voice thick. "What happened?" Nia, before the crash. Nia's grin faded, her hand gripping Imani's. "I was onto Sterling's dirty money," she said. "Offshore accounts, bribes. Eleanor threatened me, said I'd regret it. But Noah, he helped me, Imani. Gave me access to Sterling files, didn't know Vivian was behind it. He's not the enemy. Imani's breath caught Nia's words a jolt. Noah had helped. Nia risked his family's secrets without knowing the crash would trap them both. His confession, "I love you," flashed raw and real, but doubt lingered. "Why didn't he tell me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "He didn't know you were my sister," Nia said, her eyes soft. "He's fighting Imani. Give him a chance." Imani nodded the video, and Nia's truth heavy in her pocket, her flame burning brighter. She left the hospital, her steps lighter, but a figure by Lake Merritt stopped her. Cold Noah Sterling in jeans and a leather jacket, his hair mussed, his gray eyes raw with something like pain. The dawn's light painted him in gold, his presence a pull she couldn't shake. "Imani," he said, his voice rough, stepping closer. "I'm done with lies," I faced. Vivian told her. "I'm out. No board, no Sterling empire. I'm here for you." Her heart twisted his words, a bomb and a blade. "You broke me." "Noah," she said, her eyes locked on his, her voice trembling. "Eleanor's video. Your secrets. How do I trust you?" He pulled out his phone, showing a recorded call. Vivian's voice cold, admitting the crash was her plan to secure Eleanor. "I cut her off," Noah said, his voice fervent. "I'm giving everything to the truth. Imani, I painted you because I saw you before I knew your name. Your fire was my light, my..." Imani's breath caught her body, leaning toward him, the air charged with want. The lake's water lapped softly, its rhythm steady, the dawn's light catching his eyes, making them glow. His fingers brushed her wrist, slow, deliberate, sending shivers up her arm, the scent of lake water and earth grounding her. "I want to believe you," she whispered, her voice cracking her hand, grazing his, their fingers entwining the contact electric tender, the dawn's warmth wrapping them. "I'll wait," Noah said, his thumb grazing her knuckles, his voice a vow, his touch a quiet fire. "As long as you need." She pulled back, her heart pounding the iris petal, her anchor. "Find me in Chicago," she said, turning away the lake's light, a promise she wasn't ready to claim. She had Eleanor's video, Nia's truth, and a fire no one could dim. In Chicago, the Bronzeville murals stood under streetlights, its irises glowing a beacon of Imani's dream. A new text from the hospital chilled her. Nia's monitors. Tampered suspect foul play. Imani's flame surged. She'd end this for Nia, for herself. Noah sat in his penthouse, the Sterling accounts open. Vivian's betrayal, a wound he couldn't unsee. He'd faced her cut ties, but Imani's words, "You broke me," were a scar. He opened a sketchbook drawing Imani under Oakland's dawn irises in her hair, her eyes aflame. He'd fight for her even if it meant tearing down everything. At a Southside motel, Eleanor Price packed a bag, her hands shaking her plan, unraveling Imani's fire. Nia's survival. It was too much. She dialed a contact, her voice cold. "Nia's machines do it now." But the line went dead, and a knock at the door froze her. Talia Reed stood outside, badge in hand, the cops closing in. Oakland's dawn faded, but Imani Carter was rising, her flame a beacon ready to face Chicago's shadows and claim her truth. Bronzeville, Chicago's black metropolis, thrummed with soul, its streets alive with the wail of jazz, the vibrancy of murals, and a community that turned scars into stars. Imani Carter stood at the heart of the Bronzeville Art Festival. Her mural unveiled a black woman with irises woven into her braids, her eyes blazing under a dawn sky, a beacon of resilience. The crowd roared their cheers, a chorus of pride. But Imani's heart was a forge tempered by the fight for her sister Nia, her truth, and the man whose fire matched her own. She was no longer Eleanor Price, the lie burned away, but the journey. Chicago's Gala, Savannah's reign, Oakland's dawn had forged her into something unbreakable. Oakland had given her the sword, a video of Eleanor Price confessing the crash. Vivian's orders my execution, sent to Vivian by mistake, and Naya's revelation that Noah had helped her expose Sterling's dirty deals, unaware of the trap it set. Imani had sent the video to the police. Her hands steady the iris petal from her mama's garden, a quiet strength. Vivian's hacked email, crash was necessary, and the fake nurse's payment were nails in the Sterling coffin. Tonight, Imani would light up Bronzeville, not just for herself, but for every black kid whose dreams deserved wings. The festival pulsed around her food trucks, wafting ribs and cornbread, a jazz band channeling Muddy Waters kids painting mini murals on a community canvas. Imani wore a white dress, its fabric flowing, her braids crowned with a single iris, a gift from Mama Clara, who stood nearby with Nia both beaming. Nia, still recovering, gripped Imani's hand. Her journalist's eyes fierce. "You built this, sis," she said, her voice steady. "This mural, this festival, it's our fight, our win." Imani's throat tightened, her smile wide. "It's us, Nia, always." A stage rose at the festival's heart, and Imani stepped up the crowd, hushing their faces, a sea of hope. "This mural's for us," she said, her voice clear, soaring over the jazz band's hum. "For every kid in Bronzeville, Oakland, everywhere told they can't shine, I'm opening the Carter Arts Center, a home for black youth to create, to dream, to be free. Who's with me?" The crowd erupted their applause, a tide, and Imani felt her mama's spirit, her iris, garden blooming in her chest. She stepped down, her eyes catching a figure at the festival's edge. Noah Sterling in a simple jacket, his gray eyes locked on her, raw, open. Her heart stuttered his words from Oakland. "You're my light," echoing his sacrifice, cutting Vivian off, funding the center with his own money, a vow she couldn't ignore. Nia nudged her, her grin sly. "He's been here all day." Imani, "Set up the stage." "No, Sterling strings. Go talk to him." Imani nodded, her pulse racing, the festival's lights blurring as she approached Noah. He held a canvas, its edges worn, his hands trembling. "For you," he said, handing it to her. A black woman under a Bronzeville sunrise, irises in her hair, her silhouette glowing. "I painted this after Oakland," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "I saw you, Imani, and I knew I'd burn it all down for you." Her throat tightened, the canvas, heavy, its colors, her soul. "You hurt me, Noah," she said, her voice steady but soft. "Eleanor's lies, Vivian's game. I almost lost myself." "I know," he said, stepping closer, his voice raw. "I gave up the empire exposed. Vivian gave everything to the truth. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Imani. I'm asking to stand with you." She looked at him, the jazz band saxophone weaving through the air, the crowd's laughter, a hum. His eyes were a storm but honest, and her flame burned brighter for it. "Show me," she said, her voice a challenge, a promise. The Carter Arts Center was a quiet haven after the festival, its walls lined with murals, the air thick with paint and possibility. Imani and Noah stood in a small room above the jazz club, her mural glowing under soft lights, its irises watching. The crowd was gone, but the air crackled alive with something new. Imani set the canvas down, her fingers brushing Noah's, a spark flaring, the scent of paint and whiskey lingering. "You painted me," she said, her voice soft, her eyes searching his. "Why?" "Because you're my dawn," he said, his voice low, stepping closer, his hand cupping her face, his thumb tracing her jaw. "Every time I thought I'd break, I saw you, Imani. Your fire, your truth, its home." Her breath hitched her body, leaning into his, the mural's light painting their skin in gold and purple. She pulled him in her lips, meeting his, a kiss slow, deep tasting of jazz and redemption. The saxophone from the club below wove through their breaths, its notes, a pulse matching their own. Noah's hand slid to her waist, pulling her close, his fingers slipping under her dress, grazing her hips. a low groan escaping him as she arched into him, her nails digging into his shoulders, the scent of his cologne, sandalwood spice mixing with the room's paint. They sank to the floor, the mural's light bathing them, their bodies moving in a rhythm older than the city. Imani's dress fell away, her skin glowing. Noah's shirt discarded, his hands exploring her curves, his lips trailing from her neck to her collarbone. Each touch, a vow. The saxophone's wail was a heartbeat, their breaths ragged, their bodies entwined. "You're my home, Noah," Imani whispered, her voice breaking her hands, framing his face, his eyes locked on hers. Raw, true. "I love you," he said, his voice a prayer, his hands steady, holding her like she was everything. They moved together, slow, deliberate, the mural's irises watching a testament to their blaze, the air alive with paint, sweat, and soul. Weeks later, the Carter Art Center opened its rooms filled with kids painting. Laughing, dreaming Imani stood at the entrance, Nia and Clara beside her, their smiles a triumph. The Bronzeville mural was complete, its irises, a beacon, and the festival's jazz tribute to Muddy Waters echoed in the streets, tying the community to its legends. Noah was there. Paint splattered his grin easy as he taught kids to sketch his jazz piano filling the center's nights. He'd sold his penthouse, moved to Bronzeville, his personal fortune, not Sterling's funding. The center's future. Eleanor faced trial. Her confession played at the festival, her voice smug, admitting the crash, her jealousy of Imani's fire. The crowd had gasped, their anger a wave, but Imani had turned it to hope, her mural a symbol of what they could build. Vivian had fled to Europe. Her empire fractured the press, painting her as a fallen queen. Imani ignored her last letter, her flame too bright for hollow apologies. On the center's roof one dawn, Imani and Noah stood the Chicago skyline soft in the light, their hands entwined, an iris tucked into Imani's braids. "We built this," she said, her voice steady, her eyes on the horizon, kids' laughter rising below. "With you," Noah set his arm around her, his voice warm. "Always with you." Imani smiled, her flame a beacon, not just for her, but for Bronzeville, for every kid painting their dawn. Love wasn't a cage, it was a fire, and they'd burned through the lies to find it. Thank you for blazing with Imani and Noah. If their love and legacy lit a spark in you, hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell to never miss a story. Drop a comment. What moment made you believe in a love that rises from ashes? Share this video with someone who needs a flame of hope and tell us, what dream would you fight for? Join us for the next tale where love is always worth the blaze. Bronzeville. Chicago shimmered under a late summer dawn, its streets alive with the hum of jazz and the laughter of kids spilling from the Carter Art Center. Imani Carter stood on the center's rooftop, the skyline soft in the morning light, her braids crowned with a single iris, its purple petals a nod to her mama's garden. A year had passed since the Bronzeville Art Festival, since Eleanor Price's confession, and Vivian Sterling's fall, since Imani and Noah burned through lies to build something true. The scars of that fight for Nia, for truth, for love had faded, but their fire still glowed a beacon in the black metropolis. The Carter Art Center was a living dream, its walls bursting with murals, its rooms filled with black youth painting, sculpting, dreaming. Imani ran it with Nia, now fully recovered her journalist's pen, sharp as ever, exposing corruption while teaching kids to write their truths. Mama Clara visited often, her Black Panther spirit guiding workshops, her laughter, a melody. The center's jazz nights led by Noah's piano drew crowds, Muddy Waters blues weaving through Bronzeville's soul, tying the community to its roots. Noah. Sterling stepped onto the roof, his flannel shirt rolled up, paint flecks on his hands from helping kids with a mural. He'd left the sterling empire behind, his personal fortune seeding the center, his life now rooted in Bronzeville's rhythm. His gray eyes met Imani's, warm, steady, a spark that never dimmed. "Morning fire," he said, his voice low, a smile tugging at his lips as he handed her a coffee, its steam curling in the dawn. "Morning dawn," Imani said, her grin soft. Taking the cup, her fingers brushing his, a quiet heat flaring. She leaned into him, his arms circling her waist, the scent of coffee and sandalwood grounding her. The city's lights faded as the sun rose, painting them in gold, the iris in her hair catching the light like a promise. "You see that," Noah said, nodding to the center below where kids painted a new mural, a black girl with irises, her eyes fierce. "That's your light, Imani. Our light." She corrected, her voice steady, her hand finding his, their fingers entwining. "We built this together." He kissed her forehead, his lips warm, lingering a vow unspoken. "Always," he said, his voice, a jazz note, deep and true. The dawn wrapped them, its glow a testament to their blaze, a love that burned through shadows to light a community's future. Imani smiled, her flame eternal, not just for her, but for Bronzeville, for every kid painting their dawn. With Noah beside her, the Carter Art Center wasn't just a dream. It was a legacy rooted in love, forged in fire.